Hello and welcome to Rookie Me Central's special pre-draft coverage. We've got a bit of a big fish in the studio today. Kinnear Beatson, of course, the General Manager of List Management and Recruitment at the Sydney Swans. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Michael. I just hope you weren't referring to my weight there.
No, not at all.
Fish.
Big fish in the sense that you are quite a well-credentialed recruiter, obviously. And I guess we can start there with your journey, maybe the process of how you've sort of come into the AFL, you've come into that sort of space and ended up at the Swans.
Yeah, well, originally I was a phys ed teacher at Coburg High, and in 1988 was lucky enough to coach the Victorian under-15 schoolboys. And then that year I got approached by Carlton about becoming involved in their under-19s program as their phys ed and assistant part-time coach, working with Ross Henshaw, and that led to full-time employment as their Metropolitan Development Manager prior to the National Draft. And then in 1990 the National Draft came in, I had to either make a call of staying at Carlton or moving on and doing something else. So I went and ran the Western Jets for the first year, and then got approached, for the first 2 years, 92, 93, and then got approached by what was the Brisbane Bears then, and started work with them in 94. So stayed with Brisbane till the end of 2005, and then started with Sydney at the end of 2006, and still there now. So yeah. Quite a journey, but it's been fantastic.
Absolutely, and obviously the time period that you're at the Brisbane Lions, they had quite the dynasty, 3 premierships back to back to back. So in terms of philosophy and I guess how you started out building that list and strengthening it, what were some of the sort of key pointers you looked at to, when recruiting players and drafting?
Yeah, well, Scotty Clayton, who now works for North Melbourne, he was there of GM of footy, and he'd started that process in place. And one of the first things that they wanted to do was to invest in young talent rather than going down the path of the recycled talent. It just wasn't taking them any further forward. They were winning games, but not enough to become a finals threat, etc. So Scott put that process into place and worked closely with him. And then we had a super list in conjunction with the merger with Fitzroy, which topped it off with the Chrissy Johnsons and those players. And then to get Lee as the senior coach was the icing on the cake, because he was the person that was able to come in and direct and coach a really talented team into a team that knew how to win and how to win finals. And yeah, Lee was just the perfect coach at the perfect time there.
Yeah. So in terms of, I guess, putting together a list and what's required at the top level, how do you see that has changed from when you first started to now?
The mechanisms by which you can do it. When I started there was pretty much only the trade period and the National Draft. Free agency wasn't around, delisted free agents, trading of future picks, all those things, they weren't around then. Yeah. Even the volume of information that we've got now, like GPS, wasn't there. So you weren't able to cross-reference the testing data that we get from the various state combines or national combines. So the wealth of knowledge you got is certainly more substantial than what it was in the past. But the mechanisms by which you can build your list and add to it are far more.
Yeah, has that sort of helped or hindered your process, you think?
Interesting question. I think the Swans at the start were very good at trading for players and looking for the gems like Darren Jolly and those players that hadn't really reached their potential at other clubs, Andrew Shawball, etc. But now trading for players is commonplace. So clubs have caught up very much in that space, as has sort of identifying free agents a year or two out and doing the work on them to win them over and getting them to look at a change.
In terms of Sydney's list, obviously coming off a trade period, which saw you bring in Aaron Francis, you've got picks 14 and 17 sort of at the front end of the draft hall. So are you pleased of where you sit coming into draft night?
Yes, and on a number of fronts. I mean, the first thing that we wanted to do was avoid having to trade players out, and it was pleasing that not one player on our current list requested a trade. So that was great. And I think this year was just a bit different to the years gone by because COVID wasn't as, didn't have the same impact on the players and not being able to see their families. And then pick 14, well, that's Melbourne's future first. We didn't expect that it would come in quite as low as that, so that's been an added bonus. Now, what we do with those 2 picks, we're really open-minded about that. We've worked hard this morning on trying to get our list order together from sort of 1 to 20. We're pretty much there now. But for us, we've got sort of almost 3 sections of that first round. One that you'd like to trade up for. If you could get into that group of small players, we would. But then otherwise, would we hold 14 or trade it out? Would we hold 17, trade it out? Depends what's on offer and depends on who's going to be there.
Yeah, well, that would naturally be the next question is, and you don't have to obviously specifically highlight the players, but does it come down to, I guess, the pivot points earlier on in the draft where you get the trigger that there's one player that's going to be available, and so that's when you start picking up the phone and getting in touch with the other clubs to potentially trade up?
Yeah, we'll have a bit of an idea earlier which clubs would realistically look at it and what it would involve, and that might be that we're out. The cost is just too high for what we're prepared to do, and we've got 6 players that we would look at doing that for, and then there's that cut-off point, and then that's where it gets to, well, what will we do with 14 and 17? Worst case scenarios, we take 14 and 17 to the draft and we'll get 2 pretty handy players, we think. But you're also mindful of how you can better your hand. Our 3rd pick isn't until 42, so maybe we trade one of them and smooth out picks 2 and 3, if that makes sense, and get them a bit earlier, or invest in a future pick in what looks like a pretty good draft next year.
Well, on this draft specifically, and I know there's been some comparisons already, but how do you think it stacks up quality-wise in terms of depth, and also maybe what some of the strengths of the draft are in terms of personnel?
Again, really good question. I'll reflect on this a bit. I reckon when you're looking at a draft out, it's a bit like Christmas time. They're all wrapped up in lovely wrappings with, they look fantastic under the tree because you've really concentrated on what their key attributes are, but you haven't focused in a lot on their character, their work ethic, and how good they are at improving their deficiencies, which is what you do in their draft order. And an example of that would be this year's pool. This time last year, we were talking about how good this draft was going to be for talls. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely right, yeah.
How's that looking now?
Hasn't panned out that way.
Hasn't panned out on that way. So I think you've just got to be careful. The grass always looks greener on the other side of the fence. And at the moment, next year's crops are the Christmas presents under the tree, all wrapped up nicely with a shiny little bow on it, etc. But we haven't really started to scratch down into how that, what makes them tick. Yeah.
So would you say then, given it hasn't panned out that the talls are perhaps the strongest part of the crop, then where do the strengths lie? Is it those running players, the outside runners, your wingmen, halfbacks, things like that?
Yeah, I think so, and I think you'll find that this year's draft will pan out that way. Cadman, I think, will be the exception. Whether he goes pick one for GWS or whatever, it's going to be early, I think, from what we hear. And then I think you'll find it's that whole barrage of mids, and then you start to get into a few more talls potentially. But seems to be a lot of running backs, wingman type players. The Hollands, the Burgeels, the Gilbys. There's Cowans. There's sort of a raft of them.
Yeah,
and that's where the strength of it lies.
In terms of, like you spoke before about being able to retain players, you're really pleased that no one, I guess, wanted to leave. So is that firstly something you look at when identifying players and something when you're talking to them you sort of ask of? And then secondly, the culture within the club, how much does that impact them staying?
Every player that we'll consider in the draft, we're very aware of their circumstances off the field, their family life, what's going on in the background, is there a parent, a grandparent, etc., that's really ill, whatever, to try to identify the flight risks, if you like. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we're really confident in backing in the welfare department of the club and how we look after our players and how we treat them and look after them. And Sydney's relatively close to Melbourne and Adelaide, so the players can get back and forth, as do their families, frequently. Our VFL team play a lot in Melbourne, so the boys that are from Melbourne, they still see their families a lot. John's really compassionate in them staying over, etc. Look, it's something that you've got to be mindful of. It's one of the factors, but you just got to make sure you're not jumping at shadows, I think.
Yeah. In terms of players over the journey that you've picked up or helped recruit, have there been any who have really surprised you in a sense that perhaps maybe, I'm sure you're high on most players you bring in, but is there anyone who's really exceeded expectations from when you recruited them to how they ended up at the end of their career?
Mainly the rookies, I would think. From Jakey Lloyd, who was a rookie as a 19-year-old, going on winning 2 club championships. Dane is a great story of himself, going on now to become a club captain. And Paps, Tommy Papley is also a rookie. Now, I say rookies because they were overlooked by a lot of other clubs, and we were no smarter than anybody else because we overlooked them as well in the national draft. So there's an element of luck with them, but they're the ones, because you didn't take them with an early pick in round 1 or 2, that, you have to be a bit surprised how well they've done. And they've all gone on to become all Australians and things like that. So that's a bonus.
Yeah. Are they the sort of recruits that you hang your hat on, the ones that you're really proud of, I guess, when you reflect back, if you do that at all? Are they the ones that you really sort of look back with pride on?
There's an element of that. The pride in it, but it's also a lot of learnings in it. Like, so why did they work? What can we take away from that perhaps with other draft picks that we had in the national draft that didn't work, what did we get wrong? Invariably, it will be character and their want and desire to maximise their own talents. That's usually the key. There's occasionally a few that have a bad luck with injury or something like that, like a Matty Ling, who developed a really nasty foot injury and never really got going. But a combination of that pride, but also learning on it. Like, I've been doing it for a long time, and I reckon it's really important that you do try to continue to learn and reassess what you've done in the past, what worked, what didn't work, and then more importantly, why. And what's changed.
Well, what has changed in footy over the last sort of 20 to 30 years in your eyes?
The game style, that's certainly changed. The high density rule in NAB League, which to a degree I support it in some degrees, but in other sense I hate it because you've got small forwards, etc., that have to reset. They're back in the forward 50. That's not how AFL footy's played. I don't like the way that the ball's moved laterally as much because I think that's got something to do with the key forwards falling out of the game because we don't play through them very much. We seem to go around them all the time. So if you're key forward, you'd be asking yourself, what am I playing here for? They never kick it to me. And a little bit like why the contested mark, I think, is going out of the game a bit. Because the game style's changed. So a lot has changed.
So that changes, I guess, the sort of play you're looking for, the sort of athlete you're looking for as well. Like because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Brisbane side of the early 2000s is a really physical, tough team, like very strong physically. Whereas now there almost is room for those really lean runners as well in the game because they're carrying the ball so proficiently.
Yeah, well, the Brisbane side was just beautifully balanced. Like, you had the outside runners of Lappin and Shawnee Hart, even though he was quite a compact guy. Super runner. Lukey Power was a really good runner. A lot of midfielders there that could really run. But they were also a highly skilled team with big forwards and a beautifully balanced back six. Just a great team to be involved in. make no mistake, if Brisbane were running around, if that side was still running around today, they'd be very hard to beat. Very hard to beat. They were a super team.
Yeah, no, agreed. In terms of individuals, each year obviously probably wouldn't change much, but do you have sort of 3 to 5 key traits that you look for in a player that you try to tick the box or get as high a rating as possible? Because I know character's probably one that you look at quite highly.
Yeah, the character and the drive of the person, then they want to be successful, because it's not easy. The game asks a lot of you, not only match day, but preparation and training, the sacrifices that the players have got to make. I still think they've got to be tough, physically and mentally. The skills, depending on where they play, that can vary a bit. And the game still requires good athletes. But I think you can cover for the athletic part of it if you've got really smart footballers who can move the ball quickly.
Yeah.
Because in essence, what moves quick in footy is the ball, not so much the player. So good decision makers who can execute their skill under high pressure. And that's the beauty of the championships, in my opinion, is that you start to get the best of the best. It's like that Vic Metro, Vic Country game at the end of the year. It was quite a frenetic pace, and you could see there were a couple of boys that hadn't played at the level a lot that were just starting to struggle a bit with their decision making.
Yeah.
And that's what elite sport's about, still being able to execute your skills and make good decisions under extreme pressure. That's what it is.
Can you think of anyone that you've recruited that was perhaps more fleet of thinking rather than fleet of foot, that you really had a lot of faith in for that sort of footy IQ and ability to move the ball quickly, but they might not have been rated for that athleticism?
Oh, look, the classic one back in the Brisbane days was Simon Black. Got overlooked because of apparently the lack of leg speed, but his ability to see the game unfold before other people and process the information and then execute his skills was phenomenal. And he was a really good, hard gut runner. For us, players that aren't as quick but are still making contributions because of their football prowess would be guys like Lukey Parker, who's had a really good career and got bypassed. And time will tell, but we probably took 2 in last year's draft, similar moulds in Angus Sheldrick and Matty Roberts. More footballers than athletes, contest really hard, train hard, good skills. Not the most athletic players in terms of leg speed, but again, they both move the ball quickly. So we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, and it seems like Sydney still has quite a young list. I mean, you made the grand final this year, but there's a lot of really good youth driving it forward, and the academy continues to produce some really handy players. So I guess at the core of the side, you might have those experienced members, but is it still important to you to still have a bit of a youth philosophy in terms of filling out the squad?
Yeah, I think you've got to be mindful of utilising all the mechanisms of how you can improve your squad. The draft is important for us, and that will be one point that will be in the back of my mind is how often will we have pick 14 and 17 in a draft to have access to players of that calibre, no matter where they sort of position they play. That's a healthy thing as opposed to trading them out. We've got some tough philosophical decisions to be made over the course of this week prior to Monday night.
Yeah. Looking forward to the Christmas presents under the tree for next year. Obviously, you've got a couple of Swans Academy members in the AFL Academy. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about them and perhaps why they were, or they're touted that highly?
Yeah, well, first one, Caden Cleary. Caden played quite a few games this year with the Allies and played well, and also played in the Futures game on grand final day and acquitted himself really well. He's a powerful midfielder. We need to just continue to polish up his skills a bit, especially his kicking. But he's a powerful young colt, good runner. Lockie Cabor was in the academy last year. Unfortunately, got a really bad syndesmosis injury early on in the year. So really didn't play much last year at all. Haven't seen a lot of him. The ankle was pretty nasty, required surgery. But he's more of a smallish mid forward. Bit of work to do on his running capacity, etc. But well skilled and tough little nut.
Yeah, exciting. Do you, I guess, this early out sort of project how they may fit into your squad, given they're tied to your club, or do you sort of wait to see how they play throughout their top age year?
Yeah, more so wait and see how they're coming along. At this stage, I wouldn't see them being in the same ilk as Mills, Gould, Campbell. They're just a touch off that at this stage. Blakey, Heaney, they're not at that sort of elite level yet. Yeah. But we've got Leon Cameron and Mark McVeigh now running the academy, so two highly credentialed people that should be able to polish that up.
Yeah, and any academy nominees for this year as well?
Not really, not really. We've got a couple of tools that if they get through, we might consider as Cat B rookies, but we'll just wait and see. They didn't perform overly well in the Allies team this year, so we'll wait and see.
Yeah. And just lastly, I guess, what are the movements now? We're less than a week till draft time. So are you still connecting with players? Obviously, you've sort of finalised your top 20 and things like that. So, what's on the agenda for you?
Pretty much, we've a couple of players just need late follow-ups on how their injuries are going. They're not significant ones, like the ones like Braden George, you know where that's at. Connor's stable had a training session on Saturday morning, which was great because we got to see most of them run around there. They were looking pretty good nick. Georgie Wardlaw got through unscathed and looked comfortable and confident in his legs, so that was good. It's more trying to get a bit of an indication what's going to happen ahead of us in the draft, who might get through, but also have some preliminary discussions with clubs about the what-ifs regarding the trade period, because to go in with the time that you've got allocated to do those trades, to be making it up on the spot, fraught with danger. Yeah. So, we have to know what our limits are, what we're prepared to give, to get, but also have an idea what the opposition are looking for. Otherwise, you're just wasting time.
Are you a tough negotiator?
Probably not. I'm a bit of a sook.
All right. Well, look, we'll leave it there. Really appreciate you coming in, because I understand you're quite a busy man and you've got a big job ahead of you.
Yeah, no, look, I've got a good team to work with, so I'm looking forward to Monday night and Tuesday. Be good.
As am I. That's all for our chat with Kinnear Beatson. Make sure you stay tuned to Rookie Me Central for more content in the build-up to the draft.